Hi, and welcome to Cook and Code with Dr. Sharon. Today we're going to focus on one of my favorite things from my childhood, and that was a tomato sandwich. In the South, it gets really hot in the summer, which is really good for tomatoes. And so as a child, I can remember going to my grandmother's house, Dottie, and we would always have a tomato sandwich made with the most delicious mayo, Duke's. Now, I know there's a little bit of a controversy among the mayo lovers, but here in the South, Duke's mayo is really king or queen, but either way you want to say it. So Duke's actually was developed in 1917 by Eugenia Duke in Greenville, South Carolina. And she did that to make her sandwiches have a little bit of a different flair when she was feeding the soldiers during World War I. Pretty powerful. Well, today we're going to think about the algorithm of creating a tomato sandwich. So it's actually really simple. And the thing about it is that it brings so much joy and for many of us, a lot of nostalgia. I went to the locals farmers market and I picked up a tomato, which, is always so delicious compared to what we can pick up in the grocery store. And then I've got a couple of pieces of white bread because let's be frank, who's going to put this on wheat? And of course, our mayo and then some of our variables, which could be salt and pepper. When we think about creating a tomato sandwich in relationship to computer science, you want to think about it as an algorithm. An algorithm is a set of steps you take to solve a problem. And when you're creating your amazing tomato sandwich, you want it to be in certain ways. So you're not really going to put the tomatoes on before you put your mayo. I mean, I guess you could, but the whole point is to make sure this is deliciously filled with your Duke's mayo. So I want you to think about, in computer science, orders of operations matter. When you're executing a software or a program, you want it to run in a certain way so that it completes the task. So you can think about that same way with a tomato sandwich. Your tomato sandwich are your ingredients. You have some variables, salt, pepper, maybe how much mayo you put on it. And then your output, of course, is the delicious tomato sandwich. So let's get started making that and get excited. Tomato sandwiches are amazing. Okay, I've got my setup here and I've got my tomato, my bread, and my salt and pepper and my Duke. So the first thing that I need to do in our algorithm is to cut or slice our tomato. Now, I don't often like the little top part that has, the top part of your tomato. So I'll put that aside. But oh my goodness, look at this tomato. So exciting. So I'm going to cut my slices so that I'm ready to put my tomato onto my sandwich. As I mentioned before, in North Carolina, it's really a tradition to have a tomato sandwich. They grow pretty well here in North Carolina because we have such warm summers. So usually around the time of August is when your tomatoes are like really in season and ripe because they like heat and sun. And we have a lot of that here in the state of North Carolina. Okay, so next steps I'm going to do is I've got my bread here and my Duke's. So Duke's is a little bit more of a savory type of mayonnaise versus some of your other ones that have a little bit of a sweeter taste. This has egg yolks and it has oils. And let's see what else we've got in here. We've got a little bit of vinegar and then a little bit of flavor. And it's really not a ton of ingredients, which is really what makes it so delicious. And if we think about this from a computer science standpoint, we want to think about that once you get your algorithm in place, it becomes something we call automation. And automation is when we're able to repeat something over and over again and it gives us the same results. And that's what's happened here with Duke's. You're able to get this lovely yellow top and you're going to get the same type of mayo every time. Sometimes that's not the case with tomatoes, but that's okay. That's a little bit different when we're thinking about planting and growing foods. All right, so I've got my mayo. You can discern how much you want. In a recipe, we normally follow what the ingredients say. But in something like a tomato sandwich, we can have a little bit of flexibility, right? Even though we have an algorithm, we can change the input just a little bit. I like a little bit of salt and pepper on mine. So I'm going to tap out my pepper. And then I'm going to put a little bit of salt on this, a little bit of salt, and my pepper is not coming out quite as well as I would like. And then I'm going to place my tomatoes on my sandwich. Now you could choose how many. So let me bring this up so you can see the tomatoes on my sandwich. Okay, and then I'm going to finish my sandwich out. And look at this. This is the infamous tomato sandwich in the South that we love so much. Oh, it is so good. Fresh tomato, all that mayonnaise, salt and pepper, delicious. I'll finish chewing to finish this up. When we think about creating something in computer science, we want to think about what are we wanting to create and why. And we create that algorithm. The algorithm gives us the outline to be able to solve the problem. Once that problem is put into steps, we can walk through the process and go back and iterate as we need. So I might want to go back and add a little more salt and pepper to this, but we'll see. Yummy tomato sandwich, creating your algorithm for the perfect sandwich. Enjoy. Cheers from North Carolina in the summer.